Okay, today we're going to talk about story and how to graph a story. It's kind of weird to think of graphing a story, but in order to graph a story, you have to use something called a plot graph. How to plot a story. Plotting, of course, refers to kind of drawing lines and connecting dots and making a graph out of something. And we're going to think of the story in terms of how much tension we're feeling, or how much we want to root for the character, or how much we're worried about what's going to happen here, or wondering what's going on here. So we're going to think about a good story. A good story has lots of tension. And there's basically four parts of a good story. We have the beginning, we have the rising action, we have the climactic moment, called the climax of the story. That word means the highest point, okay? So this is where the tension reaches its highest point. And then we have the falling action. And this is kind of, it's like the basic idea here. It's like having the training wheels on. So this is a very simple way of thinking about good storytelling. There's more like 7 terms that we're eventually going to be studying, but this is a great start, getting you familiar with the 4 main parts. And then we'll explore those other terms as we get further into this topic. So when it comes to a great story, we want to open up at the beginning with something interesting. Now here's a shot from a video that's called Mater the Greater. So let's go over to our video and let's show you Mater the Greater, at least the first part of it, and then we can talk about it, okay? All right, folks, wouldn't you say that that was a great story? That was a great story. So what makes it a great story? We start off with an establishing shot, okay? You can't see the characters in it, but you do see where this is taking place. A good story starts with a good beginning, something that's interesting. We have here a racetrack, and we have the beginning of a good story. Everyone wants to see what's going to happen here at this racetrack. And we want to think of a good story as having something that draws the audience in. At the very beginning, you need to draw your audience in. And one great example, if you've ever seen a Star Wars movie, at the beginning of Star Wars, they don't start with an establishing shot. What do they start with? They start with a phrase. It's just words on the screen. Long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. And it's interesting. It draws you in. The way that those words go together, it gets your mind thinking, wow, I want to hear more. This is an interesting story. So a good story starts with a good beginning that's interesting. Keywords, interesting, okay? Now, we have the next moment here that we want to focus on is where the music changed and it started to become a little more tense. And the shot changed. This is a long shot, so you can see Mater way off in the distance, and he has to overcome this obstacle. Anytime there's a problem or an obstacle or a challenge, that's going to add tension to the story. And so we're going to call this the rising action. So we see that the line is going up and it's increasing the tension for the audience. Everyone's thinking, okay, well, is he going to make it or not? So each time the character in the story is confronted with a new problem or a challenge or an obstacle, that raises the tension level for the audience. So we see that the action is rising, the rising action, okay? Here's another moment in that video that is, again, going to be part of the rising action. This shot right here, we could call this the extreme close-up, okay? I know it's a truck, but it's been personified. It looks a lot like a human face, all right? And if we were to compare this to a human, a human face, where does the camera focus? Right there on the eyes. You could see what might be the nose, and you don't see what would probably be the mouth, okay? So this is really close to the person, the character. And anytime you use an extreme close-up shot, you're expressing strong emotion, or you're showing detail that's important to the story. And so this increases the tension because he has a challenge and the character is determined, okay? I see determination when I look at this shot right here. So Mater, he is going to overcome this challenge, and that adds to the tension because now he's putting himself at risk. What if he doesn't make it? He's going to be embarrassed. And what if he does make it? Then he'll be a hero. And so we have tension increasing for the audience. You start to kind of root for this character, or maybe you just want to see what's going to happen. So you're a spectator. Either way, the tension is increasing. So those both contribute to the rising action. And you can see that our plot graph, it goes up, but then it dips down, and then it goes up, and then it dips down. And so that's very common. A good story will have many moments where the tension increases and then it kind of lets off. Okay, let's look at a third part of the rising action. In this part of the video, all of a sudden it goes into slow motion. And slow motion is a great technique for increasing tension, or at least putting the focus on the tension that is part of the story. So right here, Mater has approached the ramp and he's going up, and rather than have him just go up really fast, the storytellers draw it out longer and longer and longer to increase that tension that the audience might be feeling. Is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? That's what we're wondering as we watch this part of the video. So all three of these are examples of rising action. We had an interesting beginning, but there was no tension. It just was interesting. Now, with these three moments increase the tension, and we're raising it up higher and higher. Now, the climactic moment of the story is when he's up in the air. You might think it's, when he landed on the cars, but that was after the climactic moment. Think about it. The climactic moment is when you're most wanting to see what is going to happen next. And that was when he was up in the air and you were wondering, is he going to make it or is he not going to make it? So this right here is the climactic moment of the story. Now everything that follows is going to be called the falling action. So the highest point, the climax, the highest point of tension has already happened, and now everything is going to be bringing the audience back down to where we started. And the best kind of falling action at the very end shows each of the characters. We want to see them again. We want to see what happens at the very end of the story. A good falling action kind of shows quickly what happened to each of the people that played a part in the story. So that's called the falling action.